eyes. I know to you, it might sound strange.
This is Jessica Webster.
And this is Sam Pogue of the Fitness Break Room podcast. Sit back, take a well-deserved break, and learn about the journey that helps shape the most successful fitness professionals in the industry today. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Fitness Break Room podcast. I am your host, Sam Pogue. I'm here in Seattle, Washington. You can see the beautiful lake here behind me, or Puget Sound, I guess it would be. And I'm joined by my close friend and mentor and overall amazing human being, Mr. Mark Fisher.
Hello.
Thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. It took us a minute to kind of get this lighted, so I'm sorry if it doesn't look awesome for all of you watching it on YouTube. I wanted to show you the amazing view, but hotel rooms are not always the best, and Mark has a crazy, crazy schedule, so being able to get him on was definitely a challenge. When we were in New York recently, you unfortunately were not in town, so I'm happy that we're able...
Someone has a Burning Man?
Yes, you were at Burning Man. Yeah, so next time, our goal is to come out and see you again. So
right on.
I'm really excited to have Mark on. He has a really great story that he's shared a lot, whether it's been at speaking events like we're here at right now with the Vigor Ground Performance Summit. But I think that, it's very captivating to understand that even if you're one of the most successful fitness professionals in the market today, that you've been just like everybody else, and you didn't magically have a $4 million gym day one, and that there were some trials and tribulations going forward. Something that we just talked about before getting going is that you were telling me that before MFF there was a job that you had, and you had not only worked at New York Sports Club, but then you ran a private training facility before that or after that.
Yeah, I worked at a private training facility.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was just a personal trainer for years. That's what I did. So I don't remember what year it was now, a long time ago. Back in the olden days, I literally walked in New York Sports Club. I was an actor, and I had started training people for fun, for free on the side. Like when I was in shows, I would train actors, and I knew that I didn't know what I was doing. And I did like ludicrous things like giving female friends like back buy days because I just had them do what I knew. And at that point, my entire education was religiously reading Muscle and Fitness, Flex, Iron Mag, Muscle Mag, Reps, Muscular Development. I mean, I went deep. And like for years, I read every issue of every muscle magazine front to cover. So I was really weirdly super into bodybuilding.
Okay.
I was super into bodybuilding. I still don't look like a bodybuilder, but that was my world. And I loved it. And I loved fitness, and I really was into it. And I finally, maybe a year prior to that, finally got serious about nutrition and started really noticing things like changing. And I loved it. And I was doing it informally for people anyway. So I figured, why not make a career out of it, which I imagine, many people watching this can relate to. And I need to find a side gig because, long story short, I was coming back in town and I had two brothers getting married in December, so I couldn't get work as a theater actor because I wasn't going to find a job that was going to let me out of 2 weekends. And I went to the local New York Sports Club. I applied and I got a job and I started training people.
Wow.
Started training people.
And, a lot of people, they start training people and it isn't what they expect it to be. It's a lot harder. And there's a lot of, trial and error figuring things out. Like you just said, you read T-Nation, Muscle and Fitness, and a direction a lot of people, a lot of our audience probably how they get going too. What was it about training that you really loved?
I just really genuinely enjoyed fitness, and I liked people, and I liked the opportunity to help people with fitness. And at that time, that was actually pre my even reading T-Nation.
Oh,
so
wow.
Literally, it was just the muscle magazines. It was not even like what I would probably call progressive bro. Mm-hmm. So it was just big body part splits, lots of volume. And to my credit, I knew it was going to be very hard, and it was very hard. It was a very hard time in my life because I was so broke, and I was on the floor working minimum wage, hustling for clients, training for my NASM certification. And I also had the good sense and the challenge to know that I didn't know what I was doing. So I wasn't someone that went in there thinking I was awesome. It became very apparent to me. I knew going in that there were just vast things I did not understand about general fitness. So I worked very hard to educate myself. And I felt very daunted because if any of you have ever worked in a gym, and I know you have too, I don't know if this was your experience, you're on the floor and then they're like, go get clients. Here's some appointments. Convince them to give you money and train with you.
Yeah.
And whoa, boy, that was something that I found very daunting because I knew that I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
So I would like look at what other trainers were doing, look at the trainers who seemed to be successful. But at that point, you know, looking back on it, even then, this is kind of mean to say, probably not all of them, but I kind of sensed that most of them like didn't really know what they were doing. Were kind of making it up. And I'm not somebody when I do something, I'm satisfied with just not being great at it.
Right.
So I got pretty serious about the education from day one. Like I really wanted to do it. And I went through and I was using pretty religiously the NASM OPT model was how I started kind of understanding program design. And then what's very funny is then I got lucky. I started building a book like pretty quickly. And part of it was quite frankly, like, you know, I'm articulate, like looked like I worked out. I wasn't a big dude, so I'd had nice muscle tone, but I wasn't going to be daunting to Mrs. Rossini, who's the metaphorical person I was talking about, Mrs. Rossini. And as I grew my book, I continued to read, and then randomly there was actually a client, not a training client of mine, but just somebody who worked out, a member in your sports club, who always seemed to know what she was doing, and one day on a whim was like, have you ever heard of this website, T Nation? And that was the first time I heard of T Nation, and then it's probably not an exaggeration to say that that led to my life changing in very profound ways, because then I went deep. Once I found that rabbit hole, whoa, boy. And that was back in the day when Charles Poliquin was still writing, Mike Boyle was still writing, Ian King was still writing at that point, so that's like old-timey. You might not even know Ian
I was like,
King
careful, you're starting to age yourself just a little bit for these
old-timey
guys.
stuff. Cressy had just launched... So Mike Robertson, Chad Waterbury. So, you know, it was a very specific moment in T Nation's history that I look back on very fondly. And I, particularly at that time, their editorial content was a very broad introduction to a lot of people that were playing in the space and were pretty diverse and doing interesting stuff. And it was a good transition from pure hypertrophy and bodybuilding to the sports performance stuff, which is weirdly what oddly ultimately led me to general population.
Right.
Because ultimately, even at MFF to this day, I think a lot of my personal training philosophy has been, let me do progressive things based on my understanding of movement, which is largely drawn from progressive physical therapists who've been influential in the space, as well as the best sports performance coaches. And then let me put that in a way that is hopefully like accessible, and then sprinkle in a lot of the bodybuilder stuff, which to this day I still think is useful to consider, particularly when you're training clients for hypertrophy. So my niche very early on and to this day was something we cheekily call health and hotness.
Yeah.
So if you're going to be studying pure physique, the bodybuilders know a thing or two about nutrition. It's not always the best choice for Mrs. Rossini, but if you're really looking as I was at that time and started very quickly working with actors and people in the Broadway community, not unlike a celebrity trainer in LA, I needed to get a certain result and I knew how to do it. And a lot of the program design protocols of bodybuilders, I think we're starting to look on now and be like, okay, some of that stuff wasn't as ridiculous as for a while the whole industry thought.
Yeah.
So I'll spare you the program design nerd out, but
I mean, it's
some
great.
other time we'll nerd out on that.
Yeah, I think some people, if you guys are familiar with Mark, you know that he has a very eclectic facility in New York that's very successful, and he doesn't try to be the Eric Cressy sports performance realm. And not that that's bad to be that way, but it's owning your market and being able to identify what clientele is resonating with your voice. And you figured that out day one, right? You were a struggling actor trying to figure out, you know, how to make it. And unlike training where you can go out and get clients, you can't just go out and get movies and commercials, and you're kind of reliant on someone else.
You know, it's interesting you say that. So this is interesting as we talked right before we went on the air, and no one's ever really asked me about this time of my life. And I think it's an interesting sort of really unmaking of the myth, because I'm aware MFF now has a certain bit of notoriety, and it's really, it has felt like a very steady crescendo over the past 4 years of people getting to know us. But certainly MFF didn't exist fully formed. So there were like years of me figuring out who I was as a trainer. A lot of MFF's brand didn't really happen until right before MFF, the business happened. It didn't really start happening until I started doing group stuff. But keep in mind, I had been doing one-on-one personal training for years before that. So even a lot of our, quirky imagery and metaphors, all that stuff came a lot later. So for a long time, I was just like a slightly quirky and weird trainer. But I was basically just like a friendly trainer. I was not, a lot of the very memorable imagery and branding of MFF, the business, didn't happen until right before we had a physical space.
Wow. And I think, I've known you for, probably coming up on a year now. We've interacted a number of times, but I love being able to hear this part because you do a lot of speaking and you've shared your story a lot in terms of why fitness was important to you. And I think it is really important to everyone to know that, like, up until even to this day, you're still figuring out your own brand.
Oh, yeah.
Mark Fisher Human Being to MFF to how you're asked to be a presenter at Perform Better to the Vigor Ground Summit. Did the audience that resonated with you start off that way? I mean, I know you were training some actors and Broadway actors for free, for fun, to like figure out if you like this industry. Was that who was resonating with you in these New York sports clubs and these private facilities?
Kind of. It was really more anybody that would give me money to train them. And that, again, like, listen, there, is a whole other component of all this. We know, rightly or wrongly, that, I was like a not ugly, like late 20s guy that was pretty fit in a market where there were not a lot of other guys in my demographic, particularly breaking in New York City, like personal trainer scene. There was something to be said for that. Weirdly was a differentiator in that market, and I do think from day one, I seemed to have a propensity for people that felt slightly uncomfortable in the gym, felt a little more comfortable with me. Because a lot of my business, I can remember people organically. It's interesting enough. I have 2 clients still to this day, Mark Fisher Fitness, that started with me in the first 3 months of training New York Sports Club, and both of whom were people that came up to me, just as it happens when you're in the gym. Part of how you build your business is if you're just good at what you're doing and you're paying attention, they would just come up to me and be like, oh, I want to train with you. And I remember another gentleman who's not currently training with me now, but actually partly is why MFF happened, because he years later asked me to do group training, who was one of my first clients at New York Sports Club, told me that when he saw me train with people, it was like the opposite. It was like the opposite of ADD. It was like I was so zoomed in totally on that person that's why he was like, oh, I want to go train with that guy. So that's an interesting thing too when you're in that particular environment. And to some extent, even when I was doing my own thing as an independent trainer, you are to some extent always marketing your services. There's a little bit of showbiz involved.
Absolutely.
By demonstrating not only that you know what you're doing, that you're being friendly, and just really zooming in, just full service mindset focus on the person in front of you.
I think that's so huge. And if you guys read my ebook, that you'll know that, who resonates and trains with you isn't always who you expect it to be. And not that it doesn't fall that way, but understanding how to relate to people is super important. And there's a million trainers, and you're in the most competitive, if not the most competitive market in all of fitness in New York City. I mean, every block has a premier new training facility, everything from MFF to Drive 495 to Tone House, Rumble, Solace, whatever it may be. For you, what was it about, the training aspect and what really resonated with you in delivering that to your clients? Was there a particular emotive feel? Was it like a transformation that really hooked you that led you to want to go down this hole? Or was it?
Yeah, I part of it was selfish, honestly, just that I just loved it. I was just so interested in it, particularly once I found T-Nation, because I had already been obsessed about reading the bodybuilding magazines for years, but then it just opened up this whole other world, and I was kind of checking out some PT on the net stuff. I was paying attention to some of NASM's continuing education resources, but T-Nation was the perfect entryway drug because it was kind of bro.
Yeah.
It was speaking particularly to what I was interested in, which hypertrophy and getting stronger. And then that opened up the door to Elite FTS. That's how I found all these guys and eventually found the whole Perform Better circuit. And then that led to the strengthcoach.com. And I took the FMS 4 times or something ludicrous.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I was I was in it, and then that led to kettlebells, and I found like the Dragon Door certifications and all that stuff. So for me, I was just so passionate about it, and even like it's all I want to do. And I, have been. A lot of people know I'm a pretty voracious reader, but I didn't really start that to 2010. So prior to that, it's funny. Like I definitely still read like a decent amount about fitness, but what's funny is I just read so much online. So before I got into books, before I got into like the hard stuff, I was just like very obsessive of any blog if anybody wrote for T Nation, and then I just crushed every episode of the Fitcast.
Wow.
Which is so funny now because Kevin Larrabee's like a good buddy of mine, and like the entire NFF team virtually has been on the Fitcast. So yeah, so that was how I got a lot of information at that time.
Who was it that you resonated with the most? As you're crushing through content and you're developing as a trainer and your book is steadily getting bigger and bigger, we start to evolve or upgrade our training philosophies. And the more we learn, the more we realize we don't know anything. So we're trying to figure out do I deliver kettlebells or bodybuilding or can I live in 2 camps?
Of course.
Who really struck you right there educationally that inspired you?
I mean, it's so hard because honestly, to some extent, it was everyone. I think stylistically, brand-wise, the person who probably should get the most credit for MFF existing is Tony Gentlecore.
Wow.
Because Tony Gentlecore, and to a lesser extent, John Romanella, but Tony Gentlecore particularly, I've been reading his blog because he was the Boston Globe. Another very bizarre thing. I mean, we were at each other's wedding now, but for like years, we were just like, I was a fanboy. And I remember reading his stuff, and both, Tony's great at training. He makes it accessible. And he's like not afraid to be a little bit weird and a little bit quirky. And I think that was important to give me permission to sort of let me start to let my freak flag fly a little bit. But, there were other mentors. I mean, certainly Mike Boyle has had an amazing, incredible influence on me over the years because I've just absorbed so much of his stuff. Dan John. I think when it comes to nutrition, Alan Aragon has been a very influential person to me. And then I'd say, Greg Cook, like I said, the FMS. Was very important for me to look at movement in a more thoughtful and deeper way. And I think those are the people that stand out most. And Eric Cressy, and I mean, so that's everybody.
Everybody. Well, I mean, I think that's so important.
Literally everybody.
Because you're that for a lot of people as an inspirational flagpole for what I aspire to be. And I hopefully that you guys all appreciate that, Mark went through the large sports club, then went independent privateer, and then now obviously owns one of the most successful establishments, 2 of them in New York. When was it that you called Keeler to say like, hey, this is an idea that I have that MFF could be a possibility? Like, when did you make that transition from the private facility to...
It's funny, Keeler called me, and at first I was like, absolutely not. Because, so essentially what happened was, the part of the story is relevant. I had always had a pretty robust training business on the side, and it was great, but I knew even by the time I finally transitioned out of going out of town, like, I didn't like that my clients would have to be like, well, I can't see you for the next few months because I'm leaving. And then it was this tough thing where if I was succeeding as an actor, it was me and my clients were kind of getting the short end. And there were periods where I did both, and I did crazy things. And, when I did the few times I would do a show in town, I would just like make it work. And looking back on it, I don't know how I did it logistically, but clearly I did. And in 2010, the summer of 2010, I did an Allstate commercial, which, did I show you last night? I actually have the video pulled on my phone if you want to see it. So I did an Allstate commercial, and once I started getting the residuals for it, I was like, fuck the theater. I am a fucking TV and film actor, because when you do commercial work, for those not familiar, it's very, very lucrative. Okay. So, and at that point, I think I had like just turned 30 and my priorities were changing a little bit. And I was like, well, maybe I don't want to be super poor always. And it's weird. I really liked training. And I also had been doing it for years and years and years, but I had kind of kept my mouth shut. So I think I wanted to be in the city. I knew I was developing this latent interest around business, at least a curiosity. I decided 2 things. Number 1, that I was going to do a deliberate goal setting and visioning process every 3 months. And number 2, I decided I was going to read 2 books a week. I'd read 1 book on business and 1 book on training, and I would just do that until I got bored. And now here we are, over 7 years later, still doing it. But that, I think, was just opened my eyes up to a lot of information and a lot of potential, a lot of opportunity and things I just didn't otherwise see, including me like working seriously on my business. And I think this is probably relevant to share for anybody looking to break in. Part of, I think, what really worked for me is by the time I did that, I was able to talk to somebody and let them know in no uncertain terms, I am the best trainer you're going to have a chance to work with. Only in the sense that I'm super fun to be around.
Yeah.
I'm super on my stuff. I know this. I'm going to get you great results. If you need somebody to help you with this, you're making a terrible, terrible mistake if you don't hire me. You don't need to hire me, but like if you're going to hire someone, like I'm definitely the person you want to do it. And I think that was compelling, right? I think that level of confidence, which, you know, and I had the skills to pay the bills. I could back it up. So I was able to start to do things like even, you know, coming out as a trainer. Because at that point, I didn't really talk about training. That like people kind of knew I did it, but for years I just did it on the down low. And then I started coming out and really letting and not being afraid to put it out there. And I remember even I think my agents, because my talent agent was a client for a couple years there at the beginning. And I remember like going into them being like, if you have clients that need help getting fit, you must send them to me. You must send them to me because I will help them and I will take great care of them and I will understand where they're coming from and I will get them there quickly because I really, really know what I'm doing.
What's up, everybody? Jessica here. Okay, this seems like a somewhat natural break in the show to let you in on a few things. First off, we also have a video version of every episode, so if you're not in your car or you are whatever, and you like to live dangerously, you can go to fitnessbreakroom.com to see Sam and I and our lovely guests recording in LA, San Diego, New York, Austin, you know, all the places we visit to bring you access to the break room. Secondly, we need to go in for an ask. I know it's early, but this is so important to the success of the break room. This might be more info than you want to know, but hey, maybe you're starting a podcast and want to know this. We need to hit at least 30 good reviews in our first week or so after we've launched, so it would be a huge gift to us if you could take 30 seconds to subscribe to the Fitness Break Room on iTunes and leave us a review. If that happens, there's a good chance we'll be showcased in the new and noteworthy section, and that's exactly what we need to ensure the podcast is off to a strong start. The stronger the start, the more time we can dedicate to bringing you these unique stories of fitness professionals that are just rocking this industry. If you could do that, that would be amazing. To make this ask a little bit more juicy, if you send me a screenshot of your review, I'll give you an extra entry into our monthly Fitness Industry Night giveaway, where Sam and I pick one subscriber to win hundreds of dollars worth of fitness swag every last Friday of the month. This month, it's December 2017, is a huge assortment of Onnit supplements and golden earbuds. Fancy. So you can find all that information on our homepage. And thanks to Onnit, as always, you guys rock. Love you. If you haven't entered to win this giveaway, you can go to our website, fitnessbreakroom.com, to do that. And then you can email me your screenshot of your review on iTunes at jessica@fitnessbreakroom.com, or you can hit me up on Instagram at jessicawebster_, and I'll give you that extra entry to win that awesome giveaway from our friends at Onnit. All right, that's it for me. Enjoy the rest of the show, and thanks so much in advance for your review. It means a lot to us. It really does.
Why do you think you were afraid to put yourself out there like that?
I don't think I was afraid necessarily, but I think I was just really focused more on the acting thing. I think, you know, in retrospect, maybe I was curious people wouldn't take me serious as an actor if I was also openly serious about being a trainer. But I also, you know, I think I reached a tipping point where I just knew that I'm great at this. Like if people do what I tell them to do, which, you know, we talked about today, it's a lot more than that. But I had a lot of people that, you know, would do what I would tell them to do and would get great results. And I think I'd been in the game long enough that, you know, there's that great thickets and egos the enemy, the Ryan Holiday sort of concept of, you know, you get confidence by being good at stuff. Right? You become confident because over time you start to achieve things and you begin to see yourself having success over and over, and you're getting feedback consistently from other people that you're good. And then I started to be like, I think I'm good at this. And you know what I mean? Like I'm like, you know, I've been a pretty introspective dude. Like I consider humility to be like a very important thing, and I feel like I'm pretty humble. But I'm also, you know, I think like pretty confident. Like when I know I'm good at a thing, like there's a deep underlaying, almost sociopathic belief that, like, I'm great at this. Because Because I remember, another like a moment too. I remember, and this is interesting for people if they're listening to this and they're not sure if they want to make the switch. I shared this with Mike Robertson this weekend. I can remember like a very particular moment when I got Single Leg Solution in the mail, and I also had audition material in the mail. Yeah, no streaming, guys. I send you the booklet and the DVDs, and that's hilarious. And I had
DVDs
it was
pre-Blu-ray.
olden days, and I also had an audition that I had to work on for like a pilot, which is like a TV show's like first episode, like a big deal. And I was like, I don't really want to work on this pilot. And I was finding myself like dreading when I saw my agent's phone number on my phone. I was like, I don't want to go on this audition. I just want to read Single Leg Solution and learn about single leg stability like a normal person. And it was, I started to get clarity, like, listen, and I had a dear friend, an early mentor of mine who also was an actor turned trainer. I remember him telling me about seeing JC Santana present and being like, I think I want to do this, and realizing he was telling everyone he was an actor, but he wasn't doing anything an actor should do. He was just reading about training. And I think, I was like pretty legit about acting. I still worked my balls off on it. I was definitely not the guy that was like a trainer, like kind of acted. Like I was good. I was legit. I worked. I was nominated for some regional awards. Like I had like a pretty like okay crappy career. But I kind of made my living most years as an actor, which is like, not something everybody can do. But I just got to the point where I realized my passion for training was all that I could think about. So if you're, particularly if you're listening to this, I know you might be some of the people watching might be not sure if they should make the leap or not. I think that's where you start to, you really want to get honest with yourself if your behaviors are not lining up with your stated goals. And if you're finding yourself very compelled to learn about this industry, that could be a good sign. But I think, to your point, it's valuable to try it out because it's not for everyone. And there is a business component, no matter how you choose to do it, that you really have to take ownership of. That in some industries you don't, because even in a big box gym, it's not an employee situation where you just show up and you're told what to do. You will still have something of a business.
So yeah, that's perfect. I think a lot of people in this or who are listening to this now are super transitional in their potential career.
Right.
And it's like, it's kind of like waiting tables, right? I don't know if I'm ready to do this or if it's just maybe I'm into fitness, so this might be just a good transition for me to maybe get into and test the waters. Yeah. And I love that was the point for you where you just caught yourself, I care more about reading this book.
Oh, man.
Than, going to this audition, and that was the switch for you.
And I had a lot of guilt about it at the time. I remember that. I mean, because when I got on strengthcoach.com, I read every article. Like, I would spend like an entire day, and I didn't have nearly as much going on then. I still try to do this when I can, but like I would just binge. I'd spend an entire day reading and reading and reading and reading. And at a certain point, I just had to like get real with myself and be like, I think you like this. I think you should do this. So anyway, to get back to your original question, which I can answer pretty shortly. How did that turn into MFF business? Keeler, unbeknownst to me, had two dear friends from Philadelphia. He was living in Philly at the time that took my Snatch program. And Keeler had also been on my newsletter list, which I had started in the fall of 2010. So by the spring of 2011, or maybe like late winter 2011, it was obvious things were kind of picking up. I was kind of like crushing my content. I again had been in the biz long enough that like I had opinions about a lot of things. Yeah. And I was old enough to sort of own my like quirkiness. And early on, I sort of struck on ridiculous human, serious fitness as where I wanted to go. There was something about like being ridiculous, but being serious about the fitness piece. Yeah. And Keeler saw the potential and reached out to me, and we had a series of long conversations, including conversations around, how am I going to scale this? What am I going to do to make this like a real business? And I had been reading, keep in mind now I'm 9 months into my reading experiment, or maybe like 6 months, but a while, long enough to know that what scaling meant, first of all, and second of all, to understand that no, it's not what I want. I am an Ucher, and that's why I know my vision for things changed at that time. I had a very clear vision. I wasn't interested in that because I saw how I could have, a nice, robust, multiple six-figure business, spend the summers in Europe, still be a TV actor when I can get gigs, maybe bring on a couple trainers, have an admin, and have like a modest but successful business at that time. And of course, things change. Right. And, it was a Keeler over time, and it's, narrative fallacy. I wish I like took notes so I knew what actually happened. But my sense was over time, I became so interested in the opportunity to build a community in a business, and particularly Delivering Happiness, which is the book about Zappos, was very influential to me to be like, oh, you did this too. You had this thing that you liked and you wanted to be around other people that were like you, and you wanted to have a bunch of people that also like to learn all the time and read books together and make this weird, fun community together. Oh, that's what I've been wanting to do my whole life. That's what I've been aching for. I want to have my community theater again, but now like as an adult and have it be my job and like make money doing it and help other people and get to choose who I want to spend my time with. Okay, great. I'm in. Let's burn the boats. Let's do this.
Wow.
And that was kind of how MFF happened. But yeah, at first I was resisting the idea because I can remember straight up being like, no. Because I thought at the time also there was an opportunity for me to be sort of like an internet personality person.
Right.
You know, which wound up like, which is funny, which is, you know, this is before like online stuff happened. And I thought, man, it could have been weird. There might not be a Mark Fisher Fitness if I was like a little bit younger, you know, because if I started a little bit later, because the online stuff, you know, I get why so many people are running to that space, and, you know, that's going to be interesting. I think I'm curious to see the way that kind of all plays out. And certainly MFF will be on that space too. But, you know, as it happens, I'm now so unbelievably feel lucky that I did, because I'm so much, I assume, happier with what my life is now. Because in many ways, I'm very lucky because my life, I get like the freedom of a lifestyle entrepreneur, but I get to live like in person in community with a team and the ninjas. And I quite like that. So I sort of get my introvert cake and extrovert cake needed too.
I don't think I knew that you were doing the content side before MFF. Like you snatched as a program you wrote before you had MFF, and it was when you were a privateer.
Yeah, and it all happened pretty quickly because it was in the fall of 2010. To be clear, and at that point, I remember I would write like 3 articles a week, which now I'm like, holy crap! I write 1 article a month anymore.
Yeah,
and again, I have a team of other people that can do this, but that pace was super not sustainable. But it allowed me, you know, I would send out the newsletter every 2 weeks, and it would aggregate, you know, the emails, the articles I'd written. Here are the 6 articles I've read over the past 2 weeks. Oh, wow. So I was just crushing the content, and I knew, you know, and I also just like dumped all my family and friends in it. Like, I want people to know that I'm doing this, and it slowly grew very organically. This was before I wasn't doing any actual Facebook marketing, and I understood principles of marketing, but I didn't know anything about tactics. I knew the principle was if I talk about what I do in a way that's reflective of me and I give good information, it'll keep me top of mind for people, and then hopefully they'll buy my stuff.
Interesting.
And that was all I knew. But there was no paid thing. There was no attempt to go massive with distribution, which for, you know, brick and mortar, particularly at that time, I didn't need massive distribution, so it was fine. And that, you know, continued. And then I created the Snatch program, which became my first attempt at creating like a course and codifying things. And then, you know, by the summer of 2011, keep in mind, this is less than a year from when I started my experiment.
Right.
It became clear that we were going to do this. I told my agents I wasn't going to audition anymore. We drew up our business plan. We decided we would start looking for spaces the following summer of 2012. Wolf. And then within like 3 weeks, like everything happened. We're like, you're quitting your job. We're getting this space. Like, I'm dumping in all my cash, all my life savings, bringing your furniture. Brian, you quit your job. You're coming with me. Beast, you're quitting Crunch. Come this way. And like, oh man, we burned the boats hard.
I mean, how puckered was your butt through this process? Like, that's...
Well, it's so funny, man, because I remember distinctly reading Delivering Happiness and walking home to Astoria to my apartment one night and talking to Keeler, because Keeler didn't move to New York till October of that year. So this must have been the summer. And I remember we were talking about the book, and we were like, can you believe the risks they took? That's crazy. We'll never do something like that. We don't have that appetite for risk. And frankly, I don't think that's untrue, because, you know, the real entrepreneurial stories you hear of, like, if you read like Shoe Dog or things where people are like, you know, millions of dollars in debt and having lawsuits, like, let's not get it twisted. It wasn't that deep. And also for me, it's like, well, you know, whatever. I never had money before, so if I lose these $25,000 and the $30,000 to $45,000 in profit we made this year, like, whatever. I don't care. It cost me nothing to live. No problem. But then it went well, so that's good.
Interesting. That's so great. Like, that story itself, because a lot of people inherently that's the journey, right? I work at a 24-hour fitness, a New York sports club. Yeah. I go privateer, and then I eventually evolve to open up my own facility. And either it's the split usually. It's like I go purely online, maybe boutiquely train a few high-level people, or I go open up a brick and mortar and a facility that way. And you were doing the business end and the content side, which was really new in the 2010, 2011
Yeah, I guess it kind of was, and it's funny. I look back on it now, and I certainly don't have any regrets. It's like now knowing what I know now, I could have monopolized so much better. So I'm friendly with Mark Manson, who you probably know is kind of a big deal now, and like. I was talking to him like, how did you do this, dude? And he's like, yeah, basically there was just like a brief period in 2010, 2011 where if you knew how to write the right headline, the algorithm really made it possible to have organic shares because the game was different then. Now it's very different. It's kind of a pay-to-play model. You can't really have a ton of organic reach on Facebook the way you used to be able to do. And admittedly, even my stuff I never took advantage of it that way. Part of it, like honestly, the content wasn't like that good that it would have gone crazy viral. But for my purposes, it was perfect because it allowed me to really build a personal brand and really build trust in this local community of people that, found what I was doing a little bit weird and kind of remarkable. And it got weirder and weirder, as the year progressed. And then once Keeler came on, he helped codify the previous year of weirdness and make it more of a codified brand instead of me just like speaking in tongues.
Interesting. And who is Keeler for people who may not?
So for Keeler who don't know, Keeler is my non-sexual life partner. So he's my business partner. We met when we were like 15 years old doing community theater and had been very close friends for many, many years. And he is the one who, as I discussed, like kind of made us accidentally open up this weird gym thing. And we'd figured we would do something together eventually. We just thought that I would be the artistic director and he would be the executive director of a summer stock theater. Which in many ways, like MFF is not, entirely different than that. So
yeah.
So
when you were crushing all this content, I'm going to back you up a little bit. And you're reading 2 books. You're reading a business book or a development book and training. Which was, because you don't come from the quote unquote, I was the high school quarterback. I lifted bro weights and bench press and all this shit growing up. What was harder for you to adopt? Because I think both ends, for a lot of people are coming out of like, I just quit my accounting job because I love working out and I need to learn how to be legit, but then I also need to learn how to run a business. What was hard for you to adopt?
I am lucky, neither.
Okay.
And again, here's another thing, because I do hear sometimes that I'm too humble. People say that. Like, I don't actually think I'm too humble, because I'll say something not super humble right now. I don't know that there's anybody in the biz right now that has their hands on the business and the training piece the way that I do.
I don't think so either.
Like, I think there's people that are definitely like probably better at both, but I don't know that there's anybody that really goes as deep and as broad as I do right now across like business to behavior change to training to nutrition to all that stuff. So I am lucky in that, like, unlike a lot of people, it wasn't like I really love training, but I feel like I have to chew in nails reading about business. Or, what happens, a lot of people just love reading about business and don't really even bother reading about training because who cares, I'm making money. Whereas I legitimately love both, and I feel very, very grateful because I think it's really also helped me create a very unique position for myself in the industry.
That's awesome. And it's super evident in his business. What was that? Forbes number what company?
It was in the Inc. 500.
Inc. 500.
Which is a list of the fastest growing privately held companies in America. And in 2015, we were the 312th in the entire nation. So for a single unit facility, like, that's quite nice.
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah. And you guys might, go look up Mark Fisher Fitness. Check him out if you're in New York. Come check out the ninjas in the space. It's a really awesome facility. And they're really well known or recognizable from the eclectic and the posh designs inside of it. But what really makes it a successful business isn't just the ridiculously of it. It's the systems that you've built inside of it, as well as the development of trainers.
Yeah, it's pretty legit, man. And I think that's actually been very helpful also for me, frankly, because now that Business for Unicorns, or businessforunicorns.com, is becoming like, now it's basically half my time is essentially creating courses for entrepreneurs. And although it's not specifically geared towards fitness, I have a lot of fitness clientele, obviously. And I think part of that is because I think like legit coaches, like, they like to learn business from a legit coach, right? So there's a lot of people in the business space that, you're trying to learn about marketing funnels from, but like it's harder if they haven't read Super Training. Like, you don't have to read Super Training, but you'd prefer somebody to be able to talk thoughtfully about the energy systems training or different approaches to lower spine biomechanics. Like, so I think like being a nerd, for even as weird as I am, I think has given me credibility. And frankly, those are the people I'm most interested in working with anyway. I love working with the nerdy nerds. Rather than somebody that like wants to kill their business, but like is like okay to be like at the training.
So for you, I mean, you've gone from being, I mean, you still get to train a few hours a month in the gym,
Yeah.
which is, the personal development side in terms of like you love it.
Yeah.
But you're a successful business owner now. But now you're responsible for what, 30, 40 trainers?
Oh, it's not quite that many. Our total team members, which I should know, it's terrible I don't know offhand. There's around 30 of us, I think. Maybe a little bit less actually, as we've had a few people, like a few biz team people, recently pursue other opportunities, and we've realized that we're a little bit overstaffed. Trainers, I think if you include the tiers, I guess we're at like 18.
Okay. How do you develop your trainers? I mean, that's just something, because now inevitably instead of going to Gold's Gym or 24
Yeah.
New York Sports Club, MFF's a place, a high desire for people to start their careers.
Sure.
Like, what do you do to develop your trainers? Like, are you looking for someone like yourself? What are you looking for
Yeah.
in that?
I mean, the main thing we're looking for, and I don't know if this is useful because I don't know if it's like too specific to MFF, but I'm looking for, first of all, like a service mindset and humility and kindness and personability, and so I'm really looking for like values first. And then skill sets second, because the skill sets I do think are teachable. Having said that, again, we're lucky now because we have a certain cachet nationally. So we have a trainer in residence program, which is purposely not called an internship, because although it is like, it's a temporary thing and you're definitely not getting rich doing it, we don't think of it as an internship. We think of it as you are temporarily joining the Mark Fisher Fitness team. And if you need college credit, we can take care of that and call it an internship. But that's not the way we look at it. It's not the way we treat them. You're a temporary team member. So for most people now, if they want to work at MFF, they have to go through that. But they need 1 to 2 years of experience first.
Okay.
So, and in fact, if anyone ever wants to see my thoughts on this, there's a Personal Trainer Development Center article that literally John Goodman took a Facebook post I wrote and was like, "Can I make this into an article?" I was like, "Sure, bro." So if you look up Mark Fisher, "So you want to become a personal trainer," there's actually like an article I wrote about how I recommend people starting in this industry that was adapted from what I would send, because frequently people would be like, "I wanted to work for MFF."
Yeah.
And it was often ninjas, right? And I often say, and I make up this number, I don't know if this is true, but I often say like a healthy facility should have like 1% of your members should want to give up their career and become trainers.
And how many are you at now? Or how many of your trainers are working for you now? Or sorry, ninjas turned into trainers.
I don't know the exact a number offhand, like right now, but that feels about right. Because at any given moment, if we have 1,000 like ninjas, like 10 to 20 of them are getting a certification.
Wow.
Are getting their PN, they're getting their NASM, and we lose ninjas not uncommon because they go become a trainer somewhere, and we just for whatever reason doesn't make sense to get on the unicorn rocket ship. And what we're actually in the process of developing now is probably a trainer apprenticeship program that I want to launch next year, because what I've discovered is we don't have an onboarding yet for somebody that is already ninja, loves our culture, and wants to become a trainer. Because right now what we're left with is like, all right, well, go away, like go get a job at Equinox, New York Sports Club, come back in a year or two after you've had a couple years of experience. So we're looking to create now a separate parallel program that is closer to like a real internship now, where it'd be a position where it's like you come in, you hustle, and over 4 months, we'll try to fast track your ability. And then that will hopefully set you up for a great career in the industry if you want to become a trainer. And then that would allow you to qualify for consideration if we think it's a love match after those 4 weeks for you to become a trainer in residence. So we're going to build out some sort of like pretty aggressive, like kind of on your own curriculum that'll have to show this person really wants it. They're really proactive. We'll curate their, what books we think they should recommend, what blogs we think they should be reading. A lot of time like on the floor at MFF, like coming to meetings, and we're going to do our best to allow a space to that, because long-term for MFFs, I think well-being, it's great now that more and more of our coaches actually are coming from the industry and have degrees in the field. But I want to make a place for so many of our, team members that I can't imagine MFF without, that are just pillars of MFF, didn't come from strength and conditioning. And part of why they're valuable is because they were amazing people that fell in love with fitness at MFF, and we taught them fitness at MFF. So I think for the organization's health, we want both. We always want some people that we bring up through the organization, and then we want people that, like come in that, just didn't intern at IFAS and have a degree, and like they, for whatever reason, they want to come to us next.
Right.
So I think that, is part of what our opportunity is going to be going forward.
That's awesome. And I mean, to both you and I, neither of us come from the strength and conditioning background, right? You were an actor and bachelor's in fine arts, and I was business and fell into the industry. And it doesn't mean that you can't be successful in that capacity, obviously, very successful, but that you're paying homage to allowing that growth. Going forward.
Like I want both, because another thing I would share if people are looking at this as a second career, you have some advantages that people don't if they have a degree in the field, right? And literally, there's a certain amount of life experience. Not saying that you don't have a robust life experience if you have a degree in exercise science, but there's something to be said for cross-disciplinary thinking. So if you go deep in another field, and that is one of the things that I think it would be hard for someone to replicate that has served me, is I had an undergraduate degree and spent 10 years in a completely different industry while in my spare time studying philosophy. And at one point, actually, I don't think I told us that hilariously. At one point in my mid-20s, another unknown Mark Fisher fact, I was going to go back to get my master's in philosophy. And I wanted to get, at that time, a doctorate in clinical psychology. But then I got another production of Cats, the musical, and I really wanted to do Cats. So then I decided not to get a degree in philosophy.
What was it about philosophy that, I mean, obviously you're very philosophical and your presentation, but what did you plan to do with that?
Help people.
Okay.
I want to really study what is, and that's I think always been the silver lining of my work, is a study of happiness and a study of relationships, and studying like what does philosophical, historical, classical wisdom is there to glean to live a good life.
Yeah.
For me, that's always the question: like, how do I live a good life that both maximizes my happiness and pleasure, but is ethical and maximizes my maximal positive impact on the world around me. So at that time, I figured it would be useful. Let me just go back and just go deep and study classical philosophy for a couple of years. Bang on a master's. There was like a professor at City University of New York I was interested in studying with. And then I'd figure it out later and get a doctorate in clinical psychology and then become either a psychotherapist or and what's funny, because like weirdly indirectly, I'm sort of feeling like I'm indirectly, that's what's accidentally happening.
Yeah.
But I was very, like interested in like the Wayne Dyer kind of world. And I had a similar, approach now still to a lot of the personal development literature of both like liking it, but also having my science nerd side being like, okay, but what does the social science literature say? But I think like, literally at one point I was like, I think I want to be like a Wayne Dyer. I want to be that kind of like thoughtful. And I knew that he had a doctorate in it. So I was like, all right, well, that looks like a good place to start. And then hopefully I can find ways to teach people ways to live lives of service and wisdom and minimize suffering and live a good life.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully you guys have, listened to the other episodes that we've gone through and the common theme amongst every single guest that's come on is the concept of servitude. Yeah. And every single person that's been on so far has made some leaps and bounds and established themselves in the industry, yet every single one of them comes from this idea of servitude first.
Yeah.
And really making sure that you're putting yourself out there for the betterment of others. And I think inevitably we all get into this industry because we want to help people,
sure,
right? The best that we potentially can. And sometimes that leads us down a hole of like, strength and conditioning and training and fitness has very two ends of the spectrum, right?
Yeah.
There's people who are like, well, need negative energy to like, that's what fuels them. And then you have the people that,
I find that fascinating.
Yeah. Love everyone and living in the middle.
Yeah.
A lot of people, I think, aspire to, go through the ranks like you have and succeed. And you're now at the front of the room a lot. Even for me, I teach for On It and people are always interested. How do I get to the front of the room?
Yeah.
Short of the idea of like you work and eventually in order to lead, people have to follow you kind of thing. Was there any particular something that you did that, got you the exposure to start leading like that?
I don't really know. And it's weird to reverse engineer because, again, like I've obviously been in the field a long time, so you can't say it's an overnight success, but listen, I'm only like 2 years into my speaking career, and it's like this year I did almost every event, and that happened like in my second year officially of doing it. Mm-hmm. Now, again, I had a parallel career as a musical theater performer, so that certainly was helpful in that it allowed, I definitely am a little bit different in my style and my approach, and I feel like I've got both now the credibility because of some things I've done, and I have the educational background to have some chops and hopefully some useful things to share. So, I don't want to. The main answer, which I'm going to give more context because I don't want to leave it at that. That's unfair. Is like be so good they can't ignore you, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the main answer. Be so unbelievably good that they can't ignore you. So that's the main answer. But I think a little bit more tactical is, looking for opportunities to practice. So if somebody wants to present, that's a whole different skill set. And if you teach group exercise, actually, good news is you do have an opportunity to practice at some. But you got to get in your reps. It's just like anything else. And I was lucky. I had an entire career of getting in my reps before I had any chance to speak in the fitness industry. So the first couple of events I had in the fitness industry, I'm trying to think how. I don't even remember how it happened. I mean, I know I did a small event in New York in maybe 2014, and then I think it was, or 2013, and I think maybe it was 2016. No, 2015, Justin Kampf invited me to do the Cortland String Symposium, which is like a relatively small event, but Tony Gentlecore was there and some other people in the field that were like reasonably well known. And Justin just kind of took me on a whim, I think, because I had at that time an intern was friends with Justin. It was at MFF. He's like, you got to invite Mark. So when I think back on it, honestly, I have to say, it's sort of dawning on me. I think a lot of it was my team. A lot of people on my team would see something, be like, hey, who should I invite at this event? And people on my team would like go to bat and be like, you got to invite Mark. So, but yeah, it's really interesting because I think back on, which is not that long ago, it was only a year ago, but I'm trying to think through how I even got those jobs, like how anybody even, I think certainly once the Inc. 500 happened, that I think brought a whole other level of notoriety. And I mean, a lot of it also is just going to events and being friends, being cool and friendly, and in my case, saying crazy shit. Like that's a lot of it, So, I always joke that, it took me a lot of sleepless nights and a lot of alcohol drink to get where I am. And I'm mostly joking, but that's like part of it, just being willing to, be friendly and be like good at making friends. You know? Being good at social skills is useful. And it's interesting. I know that our field is like not without people that feel like drastically introverted. I used to think I was very introverted. I no longer think that, at least comparatively to other people. So I think not being afraid to put yourself out there and then going to lots of events, because it's like any other business, it's all networks, it's all relationships. So a lot of why I got the call up, I think, was because not only was MFF successful, but because I still would go to events even if not the speaker. Like I don't care. Like I'm not like, why aren't I speaking? I'm like, no, I'm going to go to this event anyway. Like my friends are here, and I hang out with my friends, and so I don't know if that's particularly useful, but I do think that's a big piece of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a goal for a lot of people to aspire to and hopefully achieve. And now you're speaking not just in fitness, in terms of building a fitness culture or building a successful gym, but you're speaking to like large companies.
Sometimes, and
leadership, and because business is business, and we heard that today. It doesn't matter. I mean, your deliverables a gym or your deliverables oranges or condoms. It doesn't matter. Like it's just building that out and the systems out.
Yeah, there are definitely certain skills that scaled across. And again, because of some of the feathers in our hat now, because of what MFF has done from a business perspective, and similar to in the fitness industry, part of success is just being remembered, right? There, and that's like harsh to say, and I don't mean this in a harsh way, but a lot of people are just like not memorable. Yeah. They're just not very memorable. They just kind of look like everybody else and they talk like everybody else. And, I am not without my challenges, but I definitely do not sound like everybody else. I'm definitely, kind of different. And even in the business space, like that stuff matters, So the Inc. 500, they do this story on us and then people read it. But even there, most of the opportunities we have are coming from ninjas and friends. That's how we're getting those opportunities. It's people I hang out with socially or people that are ninjas that invite us into their company or, so we're not, at a place where it's like Coca-Cola is like randomly knocking on our door to come in and work with them. And that type of consultancy is like actually very explicitly like not my vision. I'm not interested in something that feels like I'm someone's employee. I know there's anything wrong with that. I think that's great, but I like to have clients that like come to me and seek me out. Yeah. Because even Biz for Unicorns, it's funny as I'm reflecting on this, is we're literally doing the same strategy as Mark Fisher Fitness. Yeah. Where we steadily put out content, we slowly build not just the list, but we build relationships. We're not, the immediate term goals, like I'm looking for 500 people that on a regular basis, maybe 1,000, but like, I can get my arms around that. That's higher than Dunbar's number, but like I can know 1,000 people, and I feel like, I'm believe that because of the relationships we've built and because people's not only trust in us as like a person, but also because they're reading our content on a regular basis, that eventually when the time is right, now, particularly now, we've only just started offering things. They'll come and take some courses, right? Particularly because what we offer, I think is going to be a little bit different than certainly the fitness space, in that we're offering like content specific things, and it's not on lead generation. Not that there's anything wrong with that. You got to know lead generation.
For sure.
That's part of why I was like, there's like other people doing that. Let me talk about culture. Let me talk about developing a team. Let me talk about coaching conversations. Yeah.
What's the theme of Business for Unicorns?
The honest answer is we're still kind of figuring out as we go along. I mean, things that are sort of, as I'm organically sort of it's revealing itself to us to sound like a total douchebag. But I think that, I always say it's like, for me, it's about making soft skills hard. How do I make soft skills hard? How do I make the soft skills of like conversation and receiving feedback and developing a team and developmental coaching conversations and customer service? How do we make them into systems?
Yeah.
Right? Reproducible systems. So that's the thing I'm most interested in. It has dawned on me that also a lot of our work has to deal with like having successful relationships.
Yeah.
Like both with your clients, with your team members. So I think that a lot of those are the two things right now that I feel Business for Unicorns is about, it's a baby business. So in time, I think we'll continue to iterate and whittle down and get more specific about it. But I think, right now that's what's feeling like right, because that's the stuff I'm super interested in.
And that's, just like your training businesses and any new venture, it does have to iron itself out. Like who you go in essentially targeting may not necessarily be the ones who show up.
Well, listen, and I'm very aware, we have explicitly made Biz for Unicorns not about fitness, but I don't know, it might be mostly fitness that shows up, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And part of the, strategically, it's sort of a win-win thing, because it's like, if we don't put fitness on there, that's not going to be a barrier to anybody that knows our work. They're not going to be like, oh, this isn't for me. It doesn't say fitness. But if I say this is customer service for a fitness business, I don't think not having fitness on there is going to be a barrier for fitness people.
Yeah.
But if I was like, oh, this is customer service for fitness, it probably would be a barrier for other smaller service-based businesses of like 5 to 50 people that would really benefit from the exact same skill set.
How many people have you met, and it doesn't even need to be a trainer, but it's, I'm not good at math, or I'm not good at the finance, or I'm not an accountant, but I'm really good at the soft side. And that might be, like, you could be a great people person, and you might create relationships out of thin air, because networking in business is just like dating.
Yeah.
But systemizing it, I think, is super important. And I was able to take Business for Unicorns, December of last December, in Chicago, where it was like 8 degrees, and I'm begging Mark to do it in Austin, so that way it's not 8 degrees in Chicago in December. But I think that's, no matter where you're at in your business, I think that would be a super valuable experience, because it's not just fitness related, and it would translate into any profession or career that you're going into.
Yeah, I certainly think so, and we'll see what the market has to say.
Yeah. So what's next for you? Your public speaking, Business for Unicorns. MFF just opened a second location at the Bowery.
Yep.
For you, like, what are you have goals you forecast and set that out for yourself?
We'll see, man. For me, I don't know. Like, I'm sure I'll want more soon, but my life is sweet right now. Like, I'm really excited about Business for Unicorns. I see a very clear, like, not even hard path to becoming like a pretty robust business. And right now, I kind of think about as MFF and B4U as like twins. Like they're my two children, and they both, like, the one makes the other better. So we'll see. So, as far as MFF can have more facilities, I think that's certainly a possibility. I think, the market is really hot right now in New York, so we'd have to wait probably for, it's messed up to say, but an economic recession for things to cool off a little bit.
Yeah.
And it would also require the team really decide that they want to do that, because, Keeler, I know, wants to focus more on Business for Unicorns than MFF, and there's some things that are just not glamorous that, like, he and I are just, like, not interested in doing anymore at this point, like spending a lot of time on the phone with the real estate lawyers and endlessly looking at spaces, and so there are a lot of pieces would have to come into play for that. But, it's certainly a possibility if the team has interest in it. I'm definitely open to having more clubhouses. I'm just not really in a rush for any of these things. I don't feel this like rush to scale. I think that's a weird quirk of like, like kind of the challenges of the American dream of like more. I'm really happy with what my life is. I'm doing great.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm on path to achieve all of my personal, professional, financial goals
Yeah.
right now. So it's like I don't see a need to like kill myself because like now that I'm doing that, it's like, well, now I value time. Now I value having free time and spending time with my wife. And, that's really what's next for me is like doing more personal trips next year, pulling back on speaking so I can like, go to London, just dick around for a couple weeks and be like, I want to go live here because I can.
Yeah. I think that's equally as important, being able to understand like what if you are happy right now, and every entrepreneur is I constantly grind more, do more, produce more, sell more. And you know what? Sometimes it's okay. And by sometimes, I mean, it is okay if that's what you want.
Yeah, it just comes down to lifestyle design, man. It comes down to that 5-year vision stuff, right? Like, I'm nuts about that. So, and again, I say this knowing that approximately 1 month before MFF, like, actually happened, I was like, I don't want to do that. I'm just kind of an oocher. And, I like one of my skill sets is I can see a business thing working. And if I can't see it, I don't see it at all. And I'm like, no, I can't do that. I don't know what that is. I can't do that. But when I see the thing, I see like Business for Unicorns next year, like I see it's like a no-brainer. It's going to crush. And again, we'll see what I want once I get there. I know that things change over time, and I'm like anyone else. I'd like to be challenged.
Yeah.
But I also I'm introspective about a desire for more, like, and a compulsive desire to have a bigger business that's ostensibly helping more people, but is in fact potentially spiritual materialism, which is to say the egoic mind sneaking in the back door and like wanting to help more people as a manifestation of more ego. And I don't know. And again, I don't say that like, that's really a conversation for me to have with myself. It's not a judgment on anyone else, but, I know that I certainly have a very ambitious streak to me, but I'm also trying to temper that with awareness that your life is not long, and there's things that I want to do and I want to enjoy, but part of what I'm interested in, at least for the next year or two, and again this might change, is just kicking with my wife, hanging out with my friends.
Yeah, recently married last year.
Yeah, love my wife. I love hanging out with her. I love travel, and we'll be having kids in a couple years, so that's part of it too for me. It's like kids are coming. And I want to set up my life in a way that I can really spend a lot of time with them. And I want to enjoy these couple of years before, I have kids.
Yeah.
Where I can really, get into some shenanigans.
Yeah.
And there's not a little human that requires me.
If you close your eyes and look back, when you made that jump, even just to fully become a trainer.
Yeah.
And like, okay, I don't even want to go to that gig or that audition anymore. Is this what you saw?
No, it's not. And I think in some ways it's funny that I think I got around to having the career that I wanted to some extent, like in my 20s, even though like the speaking on stage thing is such a weird, like, oh, of course, this is where this was going the whole time.
Yeah.
But at the time, like, absolutely not. Even like 5 years ago, like I still geek out. It's like these guys, like 3 years ago, nobody really knew who I was, like, and at that point, MFF was doing well.
Yeah.
But it's it's so interesting that people that one time I would geek out and fanboy of are now like my clients or close friends or people that pay me to like work on their stuff, and I feel lucky to be in this industry because I just fucking like the people so much.
Mm-hmm. It's so surreal. And this industry, for both of us, as Mark's alluded to, being young in the industry, I remember reading, Joe DeFranco and Smitty and Jason Frugia, and it's like, oh my God, it's so surreal to like now interact with these people on a regular day-to-day basis, and that they're the nicest people in the world.
Yeah. And now it's like, it's it's like weird to actually think of being like a fanboy of these people now. 'Cause I'm like, I was like my friend.
Yeah.
My friend, I sent like a funny like GIF that I found. I thought of him, like I was like, oh yeah, that's weird. I used to like be like nervous if I was around you,
And then now you're buddies, shooting memes to Tony Gentlecore.
Oh yeah, it's my brother, man. I love that guy.
So as we start to wrap up now, I'd like to end every episode with some advice for the young trainer audience. What's a good golden nugget for young trainers getting into the industry that they can take away from this episode to help their own success? And I know you're a wealth of knowledge.
That is a lot of pressure. I'll give, I guess, like 2 real quick. I mean, the first is, Kaizen, ceaseless and never-ending improvement, and just like if you just commit and just be relentless with your education, and then take action on that, right? And that's a kind of a bigger thing because it's not just reading books. It's like commit to education and then taking action on that education. And then secondly, and related to that, it's just remembering that it is a business, right? And again, no matter what your career is in this industry, there are very few salary jobs as a personal trainer, and some general business knowledge will go a long way, and finding ways to, if at all possible, enjoy it, because it's very hard to be great at things you don't love. Right, it's hard to like make yourself do a thing you're not at all sort of like interested in. So I guess I'll give like a third related to those. If you can get clear about your 5-year vision and get very inspired by a dream that is ambitious and a little scary, but you really think is possible, I think over time you can link eating the frog and doing stuff you don't want to do and make it actually feel kind of fun because you're putting in the bricks of a brick wall that's creating the life of your dreams.
That's awesome. No, but it's true. I mean, but it's also systemized that it's not just work hard and it happens. But there was more to it that, It
is. And, there's some stuff actually weirdly, depending on when this goes live, on my Facebook page that I've reposted about considering education, because that was something that came up today in the Q&A, and I have like a lot of thoughts about it. I don't know if you saw that post, but I think a lot about, again, it's another like, how do I make education like a system in a way that is like strategic and consistent and... and we actually cover a lot of that in our Time Ninja course, which, like, I'm probably going to split and make a whole different course at some point because it's a little bit admittedly random. It's just like, I need to tell you about this.
Yeah, I'm so excited to take that one. If you guys,
oh man, I'm excited.
Mark crushes work. Like, I don't feel like I'm an unproductive individual, and when I'm around this guy, I'm like, man, I could be doing so much more with my time.
Well, it's something I'm very passionate about, and it's something, it's such a wonderful thing to give people, because time is the only non-renewable resource. And you don't even have to adopt the whole system. But if I can just give people, if they just start doing a few things with more time efficiency, and again, I have many challenges, many things I'm not good at, but this is one of my superpowers. And it feels not like training, where it's like, I could just give them a couple things to save, even an hour a week over the course of someone's life.
Yeah.
You're not giving time back, you're getting life back.
Yeah.
So it's something I'm very, very passionate about. And it's also, very satisfying too, because it's like, it's pretty easy to sell, because most people understand that, like, you can, if you get time back, like that's really worth investing some money in. Yeah.
It's the one resource that we don't get more of.
And you should do it now, because it's stupidly underpriced for the moment.
And
that won't happen forever. Get me while I'm cheap.
Yeah. What's a day like for you? Can you break down for everybody like what a typical Wednesday when you're in New York day is like, from waking up to...
Wednesday's a team meeting, so it's a little bit more atypical. But, as a general thumb, I get up, I hit my meditation, I drink my athletic greens, my coffee, and my Alpha Brain. And then I work on projects. I usually have, like, depending on what time I get to bed the night before and what time I get up, I try to have anywhere from, like, at least 60 minutes to up to 2.5 hours of magic time, where I work on, like, high-level projects that are cognitively difficult. And that's things like creating course content, working on presentations, writing email copy. It's usually some sort of writing or creative thing. I'll usually do that in like 30-minute discrete chunks.
Oh, wow.
And then I'll usually take like 45 minutes to an hour to catch up on emails. Then I'll have another snack, and then I'll go to the gym mid-morning. Come home from the gym, 12 to 1, I listen to an audiobook on double speed while I prepare my eggs and prepare my my lunch. Then I will read a book during the second half of that time while I eat that. Then, depending on the day, I usually have meetings in the afternoon. So I'll spend the afternoon doing meetings. Usually try to pop out 20 minutes at some point to meditate, catching up on emails at very, specific chunks throughout the day. And then usually at the end of the day, there's either some social event or that I'm training, or if I get done early for me, like done with meetings, usually around like 6:30, which is a very early day, then I'll usually, work till like 8:30 or 9, but usually that's like not the most effective time. So I save that for like busy work and paperwork and paying bills and email correspondence and things that allow me to be reactive, that don't require me to really focus on creative output.
That's like breaking up your day like that, and that's probably my biggest weakness, is a skill in itself that you have to practice.
It really is. And that's the thing to appreciate. You can get better at it, because a lot of people are not good at it. They're like, I'm just not good at it. And, listen, like, everyone is different, right? But, growth mindset, like, people might have certain dispositions and natural talents and tendencies, but the reality is people can get better at things if we make it a priority.
Absolutely. I thank you very much for being able to come on, and we were able to lock you down, and very much for obviously everything you've given me. Where can people find you?
The best place to find me is businessforunicorns.com, and that's where, if you're interested in ever taking any of our courses on the things we talked about, check that out. MarkFisherFitness.com is the home of MFF Online, and then MarkFisherHumanBeing.com is my personal website, where you can find my extensive douchey bio and links to the various projects I'm involved with. And actually, Facebook is a great place to find me. I'm like out of friends, but if you want to follow me, that's definitely the social media place I like really am on. And I don't post a ton, but I'll tend to post like blog content, like I really want to share this like long thought out thing of like, so I'll do like 1,000-word Facebook posts.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you again. Thanks for joining the Fitness Break Room.
Thanks again for listening to the Fitness Break Room podcast, everybody. You can follow us on Instagram at Fitness Break Room. And if you're looking to enter our monthly fitness swag giveaway, you can visit our website, fitnessbreakroom.com, and all that info's on the homepage. Hundreds of dollars worth of awesome stuff, so I wouldn't miss that. And then you can even subscribe to this podcast on iTunes and leave us a review if you're digging what we're bringing you. That would be awesome and very helpful. Okay, guys, have a beautiful week. Stay strong, and always look out for the little guy.